Okay, listen, I hear a lot of people throwing around the word capitalist. And technically, I'm a capitalist because I believe that I should have the right to earn things and keep that which I earn. And that makes you a capitalist. If you have any kind of materialistic expectations in life, and if you want a house, that's a material thing. If you want food, that's a material thing. So I've been called a materialistic person. I don't want diamonds and that kind of nonsense. So I'm not that kind of materialistic person. I want the materials I need for me to have a comfortable living after working hard my whole life. And that is a capitalist way of looking. Now, does that make me 100% capitalist? No, it does not. Because the biggest problem capitalists face, we hear a lot about it from our youth. You know, they've been using it as rioting points for months now, nearly a year, is that the monopolies are destroying the free market. And it is absolutely true. That's why jobs were exported, because there weren't too many laborers willing to work during those times, but they wanted to be paid for their efficiency. They wanted to be paid for their dedication, and they wanted to be treated with respect for their loyalty to those manufacturing companies, and they were not. The Ford plant was the biggest insult when it left, and so was, um, what do they call it, the farming tractors. I can't think of the name of the thing, and I know it better than any because I've owned many of their products, but they went overseas too. And why? They say it was because of regulation and because Americans wanted too much money for their efforts. And if you're going to work me 90 hours a week, I expect overtime. That's 50 hours of overtime, when a mandatory work week was 40 hours, which needs to be restored. This less than 40 hours garbage needs to be gone. And most companies have broke down to not hiring directly anymore. Why? They cannot get worthy people to work. Why? Because the wages do not match the economy. That's their thing. Well, when you have monopolies running your food chains, when you have monopolies running your tech industry, when you have monopolies running your finance industry, we've been through this. I mean, we've even seen, because the monopolies were so profitable that when they broke up, like the airlines were back in, the 70s, 80s, it was still kind of going on where the monopolies of the airlines were being broke apart. That was not harmful to them. That didn't do anything to stop their profiteering, because all it did was expand their industry. They just opened umbrella corporations, and boom, the monopoly still continued. So any company that monopolizes, and they use crime, there's no other way to do it. They have to break federal laws to be a monopoly. Now, Google just went through Supreme Court and all kinds of stuff, and they demanded that the entity, the monopoly, be divided up. But Google's still profiting off of that global entity. It's not been devastated in any way. In fact, both sides are profiteering for the main monopoly. It's still the same exact company operating under slightly different regulations. Capitalism has been destroyed by the monopolies in the United States. That's why our economy cannot recover, no matter what legislation gets put through. And until America addresses the issue of a monopoly, you have no chance of success. You have the perfect president in office who has understood that diversifying his investments, his businesses, when you open a business, you're making a major investment. He did not allow it to go into a monopoly phase. Instead, he broke it apart into different businesses. You can diversify in real estate. You can diversify in the economic structures, which he has done. And then you can reinvest in your own wealth, which he has done. And he's gone bankrupt 8 times trying to pull this off. But he did pull it off. That's the important part. Listen, not one politician, not one, from the bottom tier all the way up, is 100% a good person. They all have flaws, they all have imperfections, and we're well aware of our own, or we should be, so that we understand exactly what we're dealing with. Now, just because we've never really figured out the right way to address this problem doesn't mean that the way we had already set up to solve these issues with the monopolies isn't completely a loss. It can be improved upon. First of all, when you have a monopoly, those businesses need to be sold off to other competitors, startup businesses. However, they should not be declared under any means an umbrella corporation. Every time you walk into a Goodwill store, you are not dealing with an actual Goodwill. You are dealing with basically a franchise of Goodwill, an umbrella corporation, meaning somebody else's name is on the ownership paperwork, but they're still paying tribute to the original monopoly. Now, Goodwill, dollar stores, almost all of your secondhand stores that have gotten big, like Savers and such, have latched onto this, and they're going. Those are monopolies, and that needs to be outlawed. Once you sell off part of your corporation to a competitor, you should be out of that completely, not receiving any more profits, not receiving basically royalties because you started the business. You anchored it with franchise. When you did that, you allowed it to become a conglomerate. When you did that, you allowed it to become a monopoly. And when you did that, you screwed over your competitors. Now we've seen it with Goodwill, Walmart, Target. All these are still kind of struggling and to hang in there, but their product is sometimes horrible. I have shopped at Aldi, and the food you get, if you buy it fresh from the store, you better eat it quickly or it's going to end up in your trash and you just threw away that money. So we need to rethink about capitalism and what it actually means. I had to sell 2 different businesses that were successful. I had to sell them because of health issues. Because I had nobody else who would or could or understood how to pick up the reins and keep those businesses alive so that they could keep helping my family feed ourselves, keep my family up with a decent roof. I had no other person that knew how to do it. And I came out of a restricted education, let's put it that way. It was limited. And I had to learn for myself how to construct that business, build the floor plan, build the economic structure, and I had to figure it all out. And that's when I began to understand free market and capitalism. Demand always plays a key role. Always. The supply, always a key role. You cannot exclude one, and you can't keep the business going without both in place firmly if you want success. To sell off two successful businesses because to keep those businesses going because they were new, I was investing everything back into them. So there was nothing for my medical care. There was, the end for me. And accepting it, even all these years later, is still a really big pill to swallow. But if you want truth about capitalism, try opening a business. Now, you're going to face a lot of challenges, especially if it's something you've never, ever contemplated. But if you're working for yourself and you're going into people's homes and you're cleaning them under the table, now that's how I got started. But you're for slave wages. You're not even paid minimum wage. And truthfully, unless you're in a high-end job, minimum wage should not be more than $8 an hour anywhere. If you are in a job, of course there's always room for move up. But if you're in a job at McDonald's or something along those lines, and you're getting $11, $12, $15 an hour, you are an overpaid burden on your own job. If you don't recognize that, and you keep doing this ridiculous demand for heights of pay scale instead of demands for lower prices so the economy can rebound, you're failing yourself. You have doomed yourself, and there's no other way to look at it. Capitalism, they'll tell you, oh, it's a cutthroat, break legs industry. Of course it is, because of greed. And some thinking, well, I worked harder, I put in more effort, No, you didn't. All that was earned off the backs of others. And until you acknowledge respect for those, you will not get reliability, you won't get good productivity, and you're going to get screaming, the pay's not enough. Listen, I love my country. I love the fact that it is a capitalist nation, not a socialist, communist, or any other kind of nation. It's, if you can earn it here, you can keep it. And that is almost gone. And if capitalism wants to survive, they're going to have to start getting smart and bringing industry back into these suppressed communities that are dying off, that are forcing people out of these communities. But you can't come in like a wrecking ball and destroy everything the community has already established. You need to improve on it. You improve on it, you make profit. You improve on it, you make gain. You improve on it, and you can become wealthy. And that is American capitalism, not the monopolies. Do I think all the monopolies need to be wiped out? No, actually, I don't. I know that sounds crazy, right? Why wouldn't I want a monopoly like Walmart out so some small store chain can get a hold? Only because the regulations right now, the regulations are set that no small food production, like a grocery store, is going to succeed. The laws are too open to theft, too open to corruption, too open to price gouging. These are all failures of capitalism, and they need to be addressed so capitalism can succeed. And if our government isn't making money, it's taking money from others outside our country, not just from Americans. And if you want that to stop for real, you've got to destroy the monopolies and give the free market back to the people. Like an insurance company that might want to start up. The regulations, the price gouging, it's so corrupted, nobody can open their own insurance company. They have to go off of one of the monopolies to open an insurance company because they can't create a fair industry that could to be marketed to the people. It all has to be tied into these big monopolies. State Farm was the one we had. Huge monopoly. Progressive Insurance managed to stay kind of out of the monopoly, but they've been opening umbrella corporations because of lawsuits where they have failed miserably to their customers. So the market is damaged, it's broken, so is the government. I want my government earning money so that every month, instead of me paying taxes, I get money back from my government earnings. My government should be earning money, not receiving it. That is the facts of today. And for once in my lifetime, America has the opportunity, because of Trump's business smarts, to make our country the wealthiest country on the planet again. Restore the citizens' rights to earn and own and keep what they earn. The capitalist way. Throw it away. You get socialism. Then you get either communism or you get religious control from Islam. Those are your choices. That's why Americans became an independent nation. We were tired of having our earnings and our land that we bled and sweated for taken from us by a king. And there's still a king in England, but he's not an American king. America is different because it is a capitalist country for the citizens. That's why every illegal alien, every socialist commie wants to latch on to America. They see the profit possibilities for themselves. not for the American people, but for themselves. If you can learn to beat that down, communists and socialists are a tough one. We've been fighting that one for thousands of years. America, stay strong, stand different. Make our country great. Make it far more wealthy than any other country, because the wealth is distributed equally among the citizens. American Granny out.